Hey, what's up everybody? Welcome to the live stream MMA breakdown of UFC Derrick Lewis versus Mark Hunt. Everybody saying Mark Hunt mopped the floor with him, beat him easily. Me personally, I think that Derrick Lewis was landing some head kicks, was being very aggressive, but the problem is he kind of was gassing out because he goes for the headhunt. He goes for the brutal knockout, and Mark Hunt wasn't having that. You know, Mark Hunt is a badass dude, right? Mark Hunt was playing it very safe, and he's doing something the UFC doesn't want him to do, which is significantly beat his opponents. The UFC is in a lawsuit with Mark Hunt, right? And they're like, we don't want Mark Hunt winning. We don't want Mark Hunt winning. Well, Mark Hunt's doing what he's doing is winning, and Mark Hunt basically walked him down, landed some body shots, landed a leg kick. The leg kick looked like it hurt. He started chopping down Derrick Lewis. And the thing about Derrick Lewis versus Mark Hunt, Derrick Lewis was always backing up against the cage, always retrieving from the center of the octagon, backing up to the cage. And that's where Mark Hunt likes to get people up against the cage and land an overhand right. And Mark Hunt had him stunned about 2 or 3 times. And then I think it was in the 4th round, if I'm not mistaken. And that's where the championship round, that's where Mark Hunt has been in the championship rounds. He's competed at the highest level. Derrick Lewis was on a 6-fight win streak, the longest winning streak in the UFC's heavyweight division. And he ain't no chump, but he was, I think, probably thinking, I'm going to beat Mark Hunt very easily. And you can see he didn't look like he was in great shape because he still had a big belly. That's the problem with all these heavyweights coming in kind of fat and overweight. If I was a 265-pound heavyweight, I would try to be cutting weight to like 240 to fight at the UFC, because that's where a lot of the guys at the UFC heavyweight division that are winners. You have Gabriel Gonzaga about 240. You have Fedor Emelianenko about 240. You've had people like Junior Dos Santos 240, Cain Velasquez 240. These guys were whooping ass around 240, but when you're about 265, you're kind of slow and sluggish. And you can see there was a huge reach advantage. There was like an 8-inch reach advantage. He didn't use his reach advantage like you thought he would. And the other problem was, when you get up against the cage, he would get kicked and hit and punched. But in the later rounds, he had his hands down like this, and he would go like just throw a punch. And I'm like, you can't just be winging punches. You gotta throw like this. Mark Hunt was walking him down like this the whole fight, and just throwing traditional boxing. And Mark Hunt is a high-level striker, high-level. He was in K1. He was a Grand Prix champion. He might not have the best MMA record. He's like 13 and like 10 or something like that. But Mark Hunt always shows up to fight. And he says in the interview with UFC and Fox, the reason he beat Derrick Lewis like he did is because Derrick Lewis is not a cheater. Derrick Lewis is a guy who did not cheat, did not come in on steroids, did not come in on PEDs, and he went in there and did what he had to do, and he won that fight because Derrick Lewis wasn't cheating like his last opponent. Mark Hunt fought back in July when he fought Brock Lesnar, and Brock Lesnar was juiced up, and everybody knows Brock Lesnar was juiced up. You could tell he was juiced up, and people were like, nah, he's getting an exemption, so that's why he lost that fight. But if Mark Hunt fought Brock Lesnar without the juice, would Brock Lesnar be able to hang and bang with Mark Hunt? I don't know, man. But for me, this fight was pretty damn good. If you want to see the fight, there's a link in the description box where you guys can go to MMAcore.com and you guys can check it out over there, because I just think overall Mark Hunt is still a relevant heavyweight. Will he ever be a champion? I don't know. He's the people's champion. What I mean by that is he goes out there like a Diaz brother, like a Conor McGregor, and fights. If he loses, he loses. If he wins, he wins. He's the type of guy who puts it all on the line. He will battle you from top to bottom. And all the guys he's ever lost to were on TRT, were on some performance-enhancing drugs. The same thing that's happened to Michael Bisping. All the fighters he lost to were on performance-enhancing drugs. All the fighters he beat have never tested positive for performance-enhancing drugs. So, that's saying something. Mark Hunt is a badass dude. He won that fight. But at the end of the fight, Derrick Lewis did something that I was kind of shocked by. And why was I shocked by that? Well, Derrick Lewis says he wants to retire from the sport of MMA because he's saying he's getting married. And according to Luke Thomas of MMAfighting.com, in his recap video of this fight, he was saying that Derrick Lewis actually came out way before he really started going on a big win streak, and actually said that he's only in this game to make as much money as he possibly can so he can provide for his family, buy himself a house, pay for his wedding, and then he's out. He doesn't want to end up being like retarded or brain problems. And that's a smart dude. He went 9-4 as a professional MMA fighter. That's not a bad record. He's not going out there like getting beat up, dominated, and he wants to have a long life. He doesn't want to be stuttering. He doesn't want to have like a Chuck Liddell. When you hear these type of guys that are ex-competitors, you can see it in their mind and in their way they speak. They have some brain problems because they've just been smashed in the face for so long, and that's why when they retire too late. So Derrick Lewis said, this is probably my last fight, meaning it's probably his end of the road. He's retiring because he doesn't want to put his family through this anymore. He doesn't want to have his family see him get his ass kicked in the cage or see him beating somebody up. He just did it to get as much money as he possibly can, and he left. So if he was making like $20,000 or $30,000 and he invested the money properly, and he had like 13 fights, I don't know if all these fights were in the UFC, but if he had at least a 6-fight winning streak in the UFC and he made $40,000 each, that's a big chunk of money that he could put away in savings and in bonds and all that, and actually put a little bit of money away for his family. Because it is what it is, man. You see guys who don't know how to save money. You see guys who go in there and they just fight. I'll fight for free. No, you wouldn't fight for free. If the UFC said, hey, Conor, are you going to fight Nate Diaz for free? They go, no, because they want to make that money. It's a prize fighting. They fight for the money. And the more money you make, the better it is. But like Conor always says, you make as much money as you possibly can as a young person. So when you're older, you have money. Or you make as much money as you possibly can, and then you leave the sport safe and secure. Like Mark Hunt, he's never really been significantly beat down, knocked out, or really hurt. And for me, I can see if Mark Hunt wanted to retire right now, he would have a great career. He did fight for a UFC title. He fought the best of the world. He might not have the best record, but he's known to the fans as a bad dude who likes to go in there and fight and throw down. He might not be the biggest heavyweight with the longest reach, but he definitely can throw down and definitely bang with a lot of guys. He might not have the best skill set. He doesn't have a lot of takedowns, a lot of like submission victories, but what he has is the brutal KO, and he's known for that. He's known for knocking out Frank Mir, for knocking out all these guys, being in wars. But as always, this has been the MMA breakdown of Mark Hunt versus Derrick Lewis. Derrick Lewis, like I said, in the very beginning, I thought he was having Mark Hunt's day because he kept landing kicks after kicks, and Mark Hunt was stumbling back in the first round. But later, well, as the fight continued, Mark Hunt did not let that get to him. He didn't let him bother him. He walked him down. He gassed him out. And some people could say it was a justifiable stoppage. Some people could say, hey, the fight could have went on longer because, yes, Mark Hunt landed an elbow and some punches and he was turtled up like this. Yes, you could say he was turtled up. But in that situation, he was like really gassed out, like really tired. So I see why the referee did what he did and stepped in and said, it's done, because Derrick Lewis just kept getting beat up, kept getting bombed on, and the referee stepped in as a guy to saying, hey, the fight's done, because, and Derrick Lewis was like, looked at him like, really? Like the fight is over? And he goes, whew. Like he was really gassed out. I don't know if all of his fight was, his mindset was more on his wedding and doing the stuff he was doing, because I heard he was supposed to be going to Hawaii and having a wedding with his wife. And maybe his mindset was over that and not where it was in the cage. There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, if the guy already had the mindset, this is probably my last fight because I'm getting married and then I'm going to progress and to do something else outside the cage, then cool. Then I understand why he didn't train his ass off. He kind of gassed out and didn't do the things he was normally supposed to do, because Derrick Lewis, like I said, was on a 6-fight win streak, beating a lot of top dudes. He was on the way to winning a title. He was on the way of getting a title fight. But he ended up losing, basically retiring. So what do you guys think? Do you think it's okay for Derrick Lewis to walk away from the cage? Even Anthony Rumble Johnson was the same thing. He walked away, said, basically, I don't want to be getting beat up and getting retarded and having brain problems, so I walked away from the cage. I think it's great when a lot of fighters walk away when they're at their prime. But it's the bad thing was when 3-4 years come by and like George St. Pierre's like, hey, I want to come back to the cage. I want to fight again, because they don't know anything else and they still want to compete. It's like a lot of people are now saying this to Jose Aldo. Maybe you should retire. Maybe you're not the same guy anymore. It's not Jose Aldo has got his ass whooped, okay? You say for 10 years he only lost twice. That's a beast right there. That's a badass. A lot of fighters can't say they've gone 10, 12 years without losing. Not a lot of fighters can do that. And for Derrick Lewis to walk away, for Rumble Johnson to walk away, I respect those guys because they did what they did. Anthony Rumble Johnson was never a champion, but he was always going to be number 2. And you look at somebody like Derrick Lewis, would he always be a champion? I don't know if he would ever make it as a champion, you know? I don't really think he would make it as a champion. I think he would always be that, like, mid-tier, ranked, like, number 10, number 11 guy in the world, because I don't think he could hang and bang with somebody like a Steve Miocic. But the dude did say, I'm possibly retiring because I don't want to put my family through this anymore. And I respect a guy like that, man. There's nothing wrong with saying you respect a guy's opinion. You respect a guy for doing what he had to do to make a living. He fought a couple fights. He made probably $100,000. That's enough for his family to live off of, to support his family. And he left. I respect the man for doing the hustle, you know. Not every guy would say, yeah, I'll go on a UFC octagon and have like 4 or 5 fights, make like $90,000 and then retire. Not many people have that guts or the balls to even step in a cage, but Derrick Lewis did it 7 times that I know of, and he went 6-1 as far as I know as a UFC guy. He might have had a few losses here and there, maybe all his professional fights in UFC. I don't really know, but as always, remember to rate, comment, and subscribe. And do you guys think this fight was badass, or do you think Derrick Lewis just kind of gassed out because he wasn't prepared for Mark Hunt? He was just thinking, I'll land a few leg kicks, little punches, and I'll knock Mark Hunt out like he did everybody else. I don't know, man. The dude had skills. The dude had skills, because you can see he did a flying knee. He had some good punches, and he had some a lot of good head kicks, man. The dude is talented. I don't want to see a guy at this age of the game retire, because you can still see it in him. He has the skill set to be a champion. He has the skill set to improve, to get better. But he had to do what he had to do, man. He doesn't want to put his family through it. I don't know if I could be, like I said, if MMA would have been as popular as it is right now when I was in high school, would I have probably signed up for it? Probably. I'm a 33-year-old dude now. So if I wouldn't train, it would be basically stupid, because I'd be getting into the game way after my prime. Normally, MMA fighters' prime is like 20 to 30s. That's usually their prime, is like their 25 to 30-year-olds. But as always, guys, remember to rate, comment, and subscribe. Derrick Lewis probably retired. What's next for Mark Hunt? I don't know, man. Mark Hunt said he has a few fights left because of his age. He's 43 years old. So I want to see him in some big fights, big banging fights. So will he fight like Steve A? Will he fight somebody like that? I don't know. The best thing would be for this dude to be retiring as a champion. That would be badass. But I don't see Mark ever being a champion. But I see him being the people's champ. So I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.